Good morning, everybody. I see you're all coming in. We're just kind of waiting as people are coming into the coffee chat this morning. Looks like we're up to about 56 participants. As usual, my trusty sidekick is with me today, Stacy Conrad, Executive Director of Communications, and she'll be helping us facilitate our conversation as we jump into various topics. We did receive a few questions ahead of time, Stacy, to help us kind of get things going. We're also going to try something new today and just get some people's thoughts. So as people are coming in, we're getting closer to our number of who registered. We're at about 61 right now. So we'll give that just a moment. And let's see, here we go.
Do you want me to move Nora? Nora's here if you want me to move her over.
Yeah, I asked her if she's ready. While she's doing that, and again, I want to welcome everyone. I'm going to do a little quick screen share for folks. And we have a surveys that we'd like you to take. This is a little different than the last type of survey that we've done. If you could, on your phones, on your devices, if you would go to www.menti.com and can use this code right here at the top, this 792562. We'd like you to answer this question. There's about an option to put three things here. What we'd like, and you can go ahead and start at any time. And what we'd like is just your, as far as school goes, as far as, coming to school virtually, and your thoughts for your children and yourself. What are your three concerns right now? What are your top three concerns? And you can just go into this website, put in that code, and you'll be able to just type in up to three things in there. And so here we go. All right, we got coming up. Got some folks talking about graduation, but obviously a big one on a lot of people's minds. And so as people are coming in, and we know that we have a various number of folks, and I believe everyone can see this piece as well. Is that correct? Stacy, Nora, you can all see this?
Yeah, I can see it. I don't know if everyone else can see it, so.
Okay, timeline calendar. So those coming in. So, and we also in the Q&A, for those of you joining us maybe for the first time, there's a Q&A button. If you would, please put your questions in the Q&A. We ask that you don't put them in the chat. They can get lost in the chat. So if you are doing that and you're looking down at what your options are. So good, we got people coming in. I love it. We got a lot of good thoughts going on here. It's nice. The more on people's minds, the bigger the words get. So graduation, health, safety, a lot of the same things on my mind for sure. Live instruction. As you can see, it's really good feedback. We have about 63 people on Coffee Chat right now. So people are coming in. I think we're good there. And we're going to talk a little bit about graduation first. I like to kind of jump on the big dog first and talk about that. I know that's on a lot of people's minds, what we're going to do and how we're going to handle that. Again, welcome to the Coffee Chat. If you're just joining us, please log in to menti.com, enter the code 792562, and give us your top three concerns as it relates to school. And okay, I will jump on here. I'm always careful because I want to make sure that people all that are coming in a little bit late might hear what we have to say. But for those of you, as far as graduation goes, you should have received a survey last night. I believe it went out late last night or maybe
4 p.m.
4 p.m. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And so while that's coming in, and oh, I'm sorry, Nora, thanks for joining us this morning. This is Nora Hoover, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, is joining us again. So she's become a regular guest. So,
Good morning.
The survey's gone out. As you could probably tell by the survey, we have decided that we are going to shoot for a live in-person graduation ceremony in July. And we are looking at 4 dates as a possible option for us. Those dates are the 2 weekends in July. I believe it's like the weekend of the 12th and the weekend of the 19th. So we're looking at those two dates. So if you have received the survey, please go ahead and take that. If you have not received the survey and should have received the survey, Stacy, who can they contact? Who should we have them email? Is it you or is it the high school?
They can email me. It went through Skyward, and so if you log into Skyward, you can log into your family access, parent access, where those messages are from teachers, and it's also going to be posted in there, so they can just log right into that, and the link will be available.
Great. Okay. So if you didn't receive it, there's one way that you can get it. So just reaching out to us, make sure you can do that. Let's see. Okay, we also have, sorry, over on the side too, I want to remind everyone in the participants area there, if you are interested in joining us in a chat, being a part of here, if you just raise your hand, let us know and kind of share out what your question is in the chat or what you would like to talk about live. We'd love to have you. So just keep that in mind. All right, so the survey's there. We're talking about doing live, and that's our first go. We're gonna do it live. We are also talking about during the live ceremony that we would provide a virtual option for those that are not comfortable coming to the live ceremony. So our plan is to have that. We've always done that in the past. We've done a
Live stream,
and people have been able to watch virtually on video at exactly when it's happening. So if you're not comfortable in coming to a live one, we will have that. We are not going to do 2 separate ones. We're going to do it all at once. So the July date is the graduation time frame that we're looking at. So that's going to be one topic when it comes to that graduation. The other piece of graduation I see here is cap and gown. If a student didn't pick up their cap and gown when it was available, that's what I'm assuming because we had a drive-through pickup. How can they do that? And I'm going to say that they probably need to reach out to the high school administration to organize that, or straight to, I believe it's Brad Long at Jostens. He is also helping getting those items to individuals. So the cap and gowns, if you need to get those, they actually come from Jostens, and you can probably organize a pickup directly with them. So the next question here is, all right, somebody's asking, please clarify, not doing 2 separate ones. And what I mean by that is that we discussed, do we want to do a virtual graduation on one date and then do a live one on another? And no, we want to do both the virtual and the live at the same time. If we're not able to do a live one, then we will only do a virtual one. But at this point, our plans and hopes are that we will do a live graduation in July.
yeah. Some schools are doing the virtual ceremony on their regularly scheduled date, and then saying we might do a live one later down the road. So that's what the issue would be, is separating them out like that, and that's not something we're planning to do. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. Our early polling didn't fare well with that concept. Most people. did not want us to do that type of presentation, if you will. Another question was, what about senior parades? Can you explain how this will work? We've had a lot of talk about senior parades or parades in general. And for those of you that are in different neighborhoods and have participated or have had some things happening, participate in parades in your neighborhoods. There's a lot of neighborhoods in our community, and it would be quite difficult to just drag around 600 kids and drive them through different neighborhoods. So the high school principal, Dr. Henderson, and his team are considering doing a kind of like a senior walk, if you will, via a parade through the high school campus, and the staff may be at the high school. So we're looking at how we might be able to pull something like that off, where instead of us driving through a million neighborhoods, that we would have the seniors drive through the high school campus. So that's, and in fact, I believe that is one of the questions on the survey that went out, is if you're interested in that type of a parade. A lot of our buildings are doing something similar for their classes. Nora, you want to explain what the 8th grade's doing at the middle school?
Yes. Both middle schools in the last few years have started an 8th grade walk, very similar to what I think our high school seniors do, kind of to say goodbye to teachers throughout the building, 6 through 8. And they do that when the 6th and 7th graders are there still. And so they wanted to continue that tradition. They think it's a great rite of passage for our students. And they're going to be planning that in person on campus, where teachers and administrators and any staff that want to participate would be there, and then students would drive by with parents in their car. So they're just going to take it to a vehicular parade and honor their students that way. And they will be doing that for just 8th grade. Their parade will be just in 8th grade. It'll be on campus.
Yeah, so that's kind of giving you an idea. And then some of the elementary schools are doing some similar things for this being Teacher Appreciation Week. And we definitely want to shout out to all of our teachers, how awesome they are, and all the great things that they're doing, especially during this difficult time. So we're, some of the schools are doing some different things. We've asked the schools to limit the type of event, of parade type of event, to just one. Unfortunately, the traffic situations in some of our buildings can create quite a problem. For example, North Grove sits on Fairview and 135, and you can just imagine if we have a couple of hundred cars trying to get through Fairview and do something. So they may move their celebration to like Middle School North or something and communicate that out. So we're looking for that way to handle that as well.
Just so that the principals are all coordinating that now. And so parents should be getting communication, I would say, if not this week, early next week.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to make sure I answered all the questions about graduation. And I see we have a person with their hand up. Barbara, I don't want to make sure I don't mess up your last name, Barbara, but I'm going to allow you to talk, Barbara, and come into the group. Let's see how that works. So there you are. You'll need to unmute yourself, or I might have to unmute you. I'm not sure how it works. There you go. There we are. Okay. Barbara, how are you this morning?
I'm good.
Do you have coffee with you?
No, I don't drink coffee.
Oh, well, good for you.
I'm probably the only teacher that doesn't drink coffee. I have kind of a layered question. My question is, how are teachers held accountable through the year to make sure that they're covering all standards? Because in my situation, I monitor my child's learning pretty closely, and he had any writing instruction this year. And when we went on quarantine, they started writing instruction. And my concern is, how are teachers held accountable for teaching all of the standards throughout the year, especially like writing, which is kind of like a full year standard where you make it grow all year. And let's start with that question. I have multiple.
Okay. All right, Nora. So we kind of jumped from the graduation to instruction, which is great because I think we kind of took care of all the instruction or graduation stuff.
Sure.
Nora, you want to kind of address a little bit of that?
Yes, throughout the year, our principals all participate in professional learning communities. I'm not sure if you do that at your school, Barbara, or not. And they're monitoring their essential learnings with students throughout the year and how kids are doing on those assessments they're giving for what we call them essential learnings. They're really like priority standards, priority skills that we've identified as the most important thing, what every kid needs to have to leave the grade level. And they're continually working on that and circling back to kids who haven't met proficiency there. We are most far advanced in our math. We started working on that several years ago, and I would say that we have, especially after I learned last year, we were able to relook at our essential learnings to decide how they matched up with state testing. We've put a lot of emphasis there and are pretty well honed in on that. Writing is probably the second one that we've worked on, and it's a little looser, but we have those same essential learnings that have been identified. I will say I have some concerns if you feel like there hasn't been writing instruction this year. I'm not sure whether teachers are embedding that in their language arts and reading time or not. I would certainly like to know more about that, but they should be doing that. There's a separate writing time at the elementary schools for that instruction. It's built in the schedule that way.
Okay.
So I would say the PLCs hold them accountable, and the principals have access to all that PLC data, and they're monitoring that.
Okay. My other question is, what kind of professional development were teachers offered to prepare for online learning? I was very shocked to see that none of the teachers my son has were offering online virtual lessons. I am teaching all of my lessons plus new learning online through teaching them myself from home. And I was just really shocked that there was zero virtual learning except for what was on Canvas. My son, we brought back to Center Grove for certain reasons socially. And I just kind of been let down with some things, but I can't go into that right now. But I was just surprised. I mean, what were the expectations for teachers on e-learning? Was it to cover just review, or was it review and add new learning? And why not videotape learning?
That's a great question. At Center Grove, we had not implemented e-learning. We're very fortunate we don't have a lot of inclement weather days, but we had put a plan in place over a year and a half ago to start being able to do that, so that if we did have a snow day, we would put e-learning in practice. And so our coordinator of Connected Learning at the time, along with a couple of instructional STEM coaches, had trained K through 12. All of our teachers were provided a half a day of training and time to start preparing lessons. To be honest, at that time, we were talking about a snow day or two, and we wanted it to be review. We didn't want them to go into new content because that wasn't the appropriate place, but to give them quality spiral review and engaging lessons. And that was really the focus. I think, like everyone else in the state, our heads, we were turned upside down by what we're doing right now. And so it was we had to decide, we can't review for 6 weeks. But we also knew we needed to think very limitedly about what kids could do online. We hadn't practiced this, our teachers hadn't, so we wanted to be very careful. Our emphasis has been on do the best you can for the rest of this year. We know we're not going to get through all the standards. We're already starting to put together a list. We want to, all of our teachers need to share with the next grade level what was undone this year. And that list will go up to the next grade level. And we're working on, when we'll work with our teachers on a instructional recovery plan. And how do we embed that into next fall? For math, it might be, hey, we have to cover these standards before we move on. In language, where it's so woven together, it might be spiraled throughout the year to go back and pick up those standards they missed, but we're working on that plan now.
Do you offer the teachers professional development during this time? I know where I work, like as soon as the quarantine stuff hit, I mean, there was PDs within the next 2 weeks of getting teachers online, getting teachers all the resources they needed to do everything online. I mean, is Center Grove doing that also?
Yes, we're really fortunate. We have a coordinator of connected learning who spearheads this, and she has 2 STEM instructional coaches that she works with that have championed virtual learning. One is focused on elementary and the other secondary, those 2 coaches, and they have put out, we actually brought people together live until the very last minute we could when they said no more people. And they were working one-on-one or with groups. They've continued to put out more and more resources and instructional videos to help support teachers, not only the technology pieces, how to make things work, but also, we're learning more every day about what is quality and best practice virtual learning. And we're trying to share that with teachers at the same time, not trying to overwhelm them. And you know what that feels like. I could spend my entire 24-hour day on a webinar. And we're trying to pick and choose and filter that for teachers, and not knowing what fall looks like. We're trying to put together a plan to help support PD this summer for teachers too.
Yes, and we've done a lot of surveying of our teachers. Now we did just put, I think, one parent survey out, or is that getting ready to come out? I couldn't remember.
It came out.
It came out. It came out. That's right. I took it. Yeah. So, but yes, we've done that survey, but we've had probably a survey once a week that we do with our teachers, and boy, do we have a lot of data right now to kind of sift through.
And I can send an email to you, so just with some other information. But okay, thank you.
I would love if you reach out, Barbara. I'd appreciate that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you can reach out to, you can definitely reach out to Nora at Nora, go ahead and tell her your email address.
Hoover N. Okay, yeah, Hoover N at Center Grove. Yep.
Fantastic. Okay, just a reminder to folks, thank you very much, Barbara. Barbara, will you pronounce your last name? I didn't want to say it wrong.
It's Sue Sean.
Sue Sean. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Great. I appreciate you coming in this morning to talk with us. If anyone else would like to jump in and talk with us, please raise your hand on the side and we'll pull you in. As we're moving along here, I see some good questions. Here's one that I really like, and that is, will it be optional to choose e-learning next school year? I think the short answer is we are looking at that. We are trying really hard to make that an option. But Nora, you want to talk a little bit about some of the work that the e-learning team is doing and what we have in place now, like Global Campus and things like that?
Yes, at the high school, we have a really robust system already set up. Probably 6 years ago, we started training a group of volunteer teachers to create what we call Global Campus courses. They are completely online. We took about a year to train teachers on best practices for complete virtual learning and let them build curriculum for that. And we let them refresh that too. We pay them to update those courses every year or two. And so that's been in place, I think it's at least 5 or 6 years. Actually, my husband teaches one of those courses, so I see him doing that. He does summer school. They're great courses. That's the only thing I would say we've built out with that kind of strength. And now we're trying to add some of that robustness and rigor and best practices to what we're doing now. And it's really hard in flight. So what we're working on is preparing for what about the fall.
Right.
Not knowing what we're going to do to try to build and support our teachers to have more of that structure in not only 6 through 8, or excuse me, K through 8, but also in the high school, because most of our teachers aren't global campus teachers. They haven't had that intense training. So we're doing our best to try to figure out what teachers need. We'll be doing a huge survey and offering lots of options for them. When it comes to online learning in the fall, we hope the quality, our teachers are, I think, given the circumstances, our teachers are doing some pretty high quality things, but we want it to be better because we're going to have to do new instruction.
Yeah. Courtney. Courtney Slayers here. She's nice quote from her. She says she doesn't have a question, but she just wanted to say that her family has been incredibly impressed by the care of CG staff and the innovation. I appreciate that, Courtney. They've been really working hard at being that way.
I think the question specifically was about what about online learning for students who don't want to come back.
Yeah.
And I know we've talked about that, and kids that have maybe they're vulnerable because of health situations. Right. And we're going to have some teachers like that or some staff. Yeah. We're going to work on what we can do for those students because we don't want to lose them out of Center Grove. So what can we do to keep some students virtual if they need to do that? And that, so that when they are able to come back to school and be live, because I still every day think that's the best things we do for most kids, especially our younger kids, is to be in person, doing face-to-face teaching. When we can bring those students back, we want them not to be far behind, hopefully not behind at all, and they could rejoin their classes when that's safe for them. And so we'll work on a plan for that, for them to continue virtual.
And we've been doing some things for students over the years, kind of one-offs, where we've done some hybrid type of services to students, and where they've either not, it might have been because they've had an extracurricular type of life that doesn't allow them to participate traditionally. And so we've built some one-off models here and there, and our thoughts are that we're probably going to need to take this to a larger level. The other thing is, how do we accommodate learning? Where it's one of the plans that we're working on is, how do we accommodate learning in the fall in the off chance that someone might have to self-quarantine for 14 days. So if a student has to stay home because someone in the home or the student themselves are showing symptoms, we don't want a big gap there in learning. So looking at how we can continue to provide instruction that way. So those are some things that we're working on. It's kind of exciting because it's something we've looked at over the years, thinking this could be the future of education. But we were thinking it was probably 10 or more years down the road, and it, something like this kind of fast tracked it. So we're continuing to work on that. I'm looking through now, and I see here's kind of just a different question in general, but is kids are interested in playing on playgrounds, basketball courts, tennis courts, and other facilities, and outdoor facilities. Do we have a date? We don't have an exact date yet. We're kind of staging everything with the governor's plan and his stages of what opens. So that is a good question about outdoor facilities. We will probably align ourselves with what the cities and parks do. So when they're allowed to open up, we will probably open up our facilities to the public as well. So the outdoor playgrounds, basketball courts, tennis courts, and all of that are officially closed. And I know I've seen some of you out there playing on the tennis courts and things like that. We're just trying to work within that time frame. So that was a question from Rob. And Rob said that it looks like Greenwood Park has hard courts opening May 24th. So thanks for sharing that, Rob. And that'll probably be right around that same time for us. We'll probably be looking at doing that as well. But I don't know that for sure yet, as we'll probably need to discuss that as a team and talk to Dr. Long, who is our Assistant Superintendent of Operations and oversees all of our facilities and grounds. But I believe we're going to be trying to track trying to track right along with the governor and then what our local cities around us do and towns. So I appreciate that question. We're going on to another question in that. I'm looking down through here, and I don't know if anyone's raised their hand. Stacy's monitoring that. Again, if you want to join us in the conversation, feel free to raise your hand. I see another one down here with the desks that are currently in the elementary classroom. I don't see allow for social distancing, safety, wondering what the current plan with that is. Okay, so that is a huge question in itself, and thank you, Mrs. Kuntz, for asking that question. That is a tough one. We are looking at what types of situations we will need to open in, what scenarios when we open school in the fall. And I did see someone ask the question, so what are we hearing about opening school in the fall? You know, it's funny, a lot of people say to me, hey, you're the superintendent of schools, you must have an interconnection with the decision makers, you know, up at the state level. And I wish I did. There's so many times that things just happen and we learn about it exactly at the same time you all do in news conferences and so forth. For example, when schools were told to close, we were told exactly at the same time that you were all told. So having to put plans in place almost instantly. So as we're looking at what's going to happen with school, we're making a lot of guesstimations. The governor's office has said that probably not going to give us any guidance on the school until after July 4th. That is a long time for us. So meanwhile, we're continuing to plan as if we are going to open on time and have our traditional opening. Then we also have about 3 or 4 different additional maybe it's 5 additional calendars. Some of them starting us after Labor Day. And then also we're trying to figure out how we might be able to do some shifting of bringing kids in different shifts. To be honest with you, it doesn't work very well, particularly at the secondary level with 2,800 students in the high school, and trying to figure out how to bring kids in shifts. We're also reviewing the CDC guidance on interacting during those times in the different stages. So at this time, our current plan is that a classroom of say 25 to 30 students will still look traditional, and students will come back in that traditional setting. Now, we know that that's not, given today's current situation, not the best scenario, but you know, there may be some options in the fall that we might enhance it through e-learning opportunities, and it might look like something like 2 days in person, 3 days out. But the reality is the issue with doing some of that is childcare for folks, trying to figure that out, people having to go back to work. By then, if we are in school and having school, I would imagine that everyone's going back to work, or most people are. So trying to work through that is a tough one and a good question. Probably having a lot of cleaning supplies handy and keeping things clean as we go, and trying to apply social distancing rules to students. And if you've been in the high school, sometimes applying social distancing rules to students can be quite challenging, and middle schools too sometimes. So we're continuing to work on that. We have a specific question about Naviance. Do you know anything about that, Nora or Stacy?
Actually, I reached out to the high school. They're not aware of any problems with it. Okay. But I think he said he had emailed the counselor. So if he doesn't hear back, you should probably leave them a voicemail today.
Okay. So. Yes. And we'll get that message, what you did, to the to the high school administration, and we will find out what's going on with Naviance. So can we give a sense of how many students in the district do not have access to online learning for various reasons? And we know from surveying and participation that our percentage of connectivity, if you will, is around 95%. Isn't that correct? Is it 95? Yeah. Around 95% of our students have connectivity. Now that doesn't mean that they're participating. It just means that they've reported, their parents and they themselves have reported that they have the ability to connect to the internet. So that's about, like I said, about 95%. We have been working through other options for those that do not have that connectivity or ability to connect. Okay. This is always a good question too. There's the question of when can people get their things out of the school, stuff out of school. And I jumped down, but I saw it, or maybe you took care of. Did you cut that question out already since I'm answering it? Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay. So we actually met yesterday with principals via Zoom and worked through some plans to get things out of schools for students. We are looking and going to talk to our teachers about bringing teachers back at a certain time in shifts where they can go through the rooms and remove things. Now this is mostly at the elementary that the teachers will need to do that. And we'll do some type of curbside pickup for probably elementary. Middle and high school gets a little more challenging because they have multiple places where they keep things in school. So we're looking at what is the right date that we can bring them back where they can come in and get their items. So we have a couple of issues that we have to work through, and one is we're planning on bringing folks back, some staff back next week that will be taking care of cleaning and making the buildings available to enter. Once we can get that done, then we're going to bring people back in. We do have a hand raised, by the way, I see. But we're going to bring people back in phases, and the building principals will organize that. And then we're going to look at how can we bring students in safely in shifts to get what they need out of the secondary buildings. But most of that's probably going to have to happen through the students coming in at the secondary, just because we have no idea where they have all their kinds of stuff at. And it could be everything from athletic gear to music and choir stuff, robotic stuff, you name it, cheerleading, dance team. They've all got something somewhere. So we're shooting to do this towards the end of May. To get all of that taken care of. Somebody also asked, and I will go back to this one. Somebody asked, sorry to go back to graduation, but what is the anticipated timetable to process the survey data and announce the July graduation date? That's a great question. So we're hoping the survey closes Friday, I believe it is. Is that right?
Yeah, midnight. So Saturday morning, midnight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so next week, we'll go through that data with the high school administration and review that. And then we'll make a recommendation to the board at the May board meeting. I just like to make that, the May board meeting is the 26th, I believe it is, that Thursday. I'll have to look just to make sure. But so we'll make that recommendation at that time of which of those July dates. And I will say one other thing is we are very much planning for this to be an outside event, probably on the football field. We will unfortunately look at limiting the number of participants given whatever current stage we're in at the time. So that might look a little different on how many people can participate. Of course, we will live stream it. And we're going to also have a rain date, obviously. So we'll probably have two different July dates. We'll have the standard date, and then we'll have a rain date to hopefully make sure we can get that live in person. Okay, well, we have someone with their hand up. It looks like Roxanne Deerdorf. Roxanne, I'm going to bring you in here. So get presentable. And of course, you don't have to show your video, but you're more than welcome to. So here we go. All right. And Roxanne, you'll just, okay, there you are. Can you hear us?
Yes, you answered my questions about the students getting in to get their
Okay.
things out of lockers. So I'm good. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. Another question that I'm not sure if it was on here, but I know it was emailed to me was the additional regalia for graduation, like the cords and all of those things. The high school is actually working on a plan to mail those things out. So they need to sort through them and figure out who gets what, and then they are going to mail those out. Here's a great question. Will there be opportunity for kindergarten open house this summer? So we've got some fun ideas. Stacy, you want to talk a little bit about that? See, you didn't think you were going to have to talk.
Sure. So we're looking at doing a virtual kindergarten open house that will be custom to each school. So the principal will take the students on a tour, and we'll have the transportation director take students on a tour of a bus. So even though we can't get the kids in the school yet, we would have it all on tape for them, and they'd be able to get some inside looks at their school. So we're going to do some fun things with our principal for that. So that'll be coming out later in May.
Yeah, and we've got some creative ideas on how to do that to make it a little more interactive and fun. It will not replace getting in person, but it will definitely help. If we get closer to the start of school and things are looking better and we can get folks in, we'll probably try to take advantage of that as well. We know that our kindergartners, or our elementaries, I should say, usually have a meet the teacher night and plan like that as well. So we'll hopefully get those things going for next year. I saw another good question here and I just missed it.
There was one about the Center Grove Education Foundation. I see
Yes,
Jennifer
yeah.
Rako is on. We could
Yeah.
always pull her in here.
Yeah, absolutely. As that was the question about scholarships. Thank you. That was the one I was looking for.
I just pushed her in, so.
And there we go. Jennifer, how are you today?
Good, and yourself?
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us.
Not a problem.
Always appreciate it.
The Center Grove Scholarship Group is in the process, in the selection process right now of selecting students as recipients for the various scholarships that we administer. It is my understanding that there will be a virtual honors day. So traditionally, all of those scholarships are awarded at honors day, which takes place the last day of the school year. It's my understanding that that will be a virtual event this year. I don't know all of the details in regards to that, but those notifications or announcements will be made during that virtual day. And then we'll be following up with all of those students following that event with the information about what they need to do to go about receiving that money.
Fantastic. Yes, and speaking of virtual events, and thank you, Jennifer, very much for providing that information for us. But speaking of virtual events, tonight's another special event. Stacy, you want to kind of share out a little bit about what's happening tonight and what time?
Sure. So we usually do a teacher celebration night, which is a fun time for all of our teachers. Our building teachers of the year, which you guys have hopefully all heard about. We announced those, gosh, when was that? March or April, I'm not sure, it's been a while. Our building teachers of the year, and we will honor them. And then also our legacy award winners. And we're going to do it virtually since we can't do it in person in the auditorium tonight. So the Legacy Awards will run at 7, and then at 7:30 we'll start the Teacher of the Year Awards, and we'll actually announce our Teacher of the Year virtually. We kind of did a prize patrol thing, so it'll be very fun. You'll want to watch that, but it will be on our YouTube channel and also on our Facebook channel. So as soon as my Wi-Fi starts working again, I'll get those uploaded. and they'll be ready for you guys to watch. We're going to run them as a premiere so you can watch together. So it'll be fun.
Yes, very good. And while we're on the subject of awards, there is a question about the sports awards ceremony to honor seniors. I don't know if there's any plans on that. Do you know? No. Okay, that's
I
something we
haven't
need
heard
to.
about that, so I don't know. Scott Knapp is on this
Oh,
group
is he
here.
on?
We could always
Well,
put
we'll
him
kick
on the
Jennifer
spot.
out and put. Well, I mean, Jennifer, you can stay if you want, but we can bring Scott in. So, so Scott, we're going to bring you in somewhere. Are you doing it or me?
I'm looking for him. I don't see him now.
See, he heard you and he's big chicken. Where are you? All right. Well, we'll find out and get you an answer on that question for sure, and get something pushed out to find out what exactly is the plan there. So there's another question here. Oh, it's his wife, so don't bring him in. I see it. Okay. All right, I take it back. He's not a big chicken. We had another hand raised, and I'm not sure if it has gone away. I think it was Mrs. Berlin. And if you still want to come in, I see you wrote your question, but if you still want to come in, go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll bring you in. So I'll give her a minute to do that, decide. If not, we'll answer her question and review it. So if you guys could look at that one for a moment. I'll go back to the calendar for a minute with pushing a school start day after Labor Day. You know, what's that look like? Will we change fall break and things like that? You know, yeah, absolutely. We're going to be looking at those adjustments. Some of our calendars might have a later end time. Some of our calendar ideas may take advantage of e-learning during breaks, or you know, if the state allows us to reduce the number of days, we may take advantage of reducing the number of days like we did this year. So those are some things that we're working on with the calendar. We're going to try and stay with as little disruption to breaks as possible. That's our goal. We know a lot of people have plans that they've probably paid for. So I see Karen is back on. She's raised her hand. I'll go ahead and bring her into the group here. And I think Karen, as you're coming in.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. So your question is down here, and you feel free to ask it if you'd like as well. Maybe you want to clarify it a little bit more.
Sure. So what we've been seeing is parents of younger kids. My daughter's a first grader, and talking to parents of her friends, they're struggling with the technology aspect of e-learning. You know, specifically typing and you know, navigating the different tabs and the different pages and finding where their work is. And I found it interesting that she's doing music, art, and PE online, but they're not doing any sort of, you know, they were doing tech lab in school. They're not doing any sort of technology or typing lessons online. And I think that's something that could really benefit these kids, especially since, you know, we don't know what the future is going to be like. They'll probably be doing some more of this next year in certain aspects. So what, is there a plan in place for that?
Nora, you want to kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Karen, for the question. When it comes to the specials courses in our elementaries, music, art, and PE teachers are all certified teachers. With our tech lab and also our world language lab and library, those positions are paraprofessionals, and we had not trained them originally. We thought if we had an e-learning day, traditionally as we would for inclement weather, they would just not have that special that day. And so that seemed like a very feasible thing at the time. I appreciate your question, because over time I can see how missing out on that for several weeks is really important. And so I've actually written down your suggestion, and maybe we could put those resources online and have those for kids as part of their specials if we were to need to do extended learning again like this, hoping we don't. But if we do, I think that's a great idea to not miss those tech ed skills. I also understand with younger kids that the technology has been a struggle, and we'll continue to look as we have them in our spaces, helping them get better at that. Now that we know what this looks like, we're going to be better able to help kids navigate when we do have to use virtual learning.
Yes. Karen, was that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the question. This is a good one too here. Any news on summer sports training plans for strengthening conditioning programs and so forth? We actually got a letter from the ISHAA, and they have waived the moratorium week, and they're going to allow things to start back up that first week in July, which normally is a moratorium week where nothing happens. So as far as I can tell you at this time, that will be the soonest we'll be able to allow students and the coaches to begin officially doing any training, and particularly on our facilities. So the state superintendent was very clear that the facilities and buildings were closed until June 30th to any activities. It probably will not be any sooner than the July 4th or July 1st time period. This is another good thing to jot down and think about, but if we do end up doing some type of part-time or small group or shift type scheduling, we need to consider siblings. And nothing would be worse than having 4 kids at home and only 2 of them out each day. So what can we do to make sure? I appreciate that question, Melissa, and that is definitely something. If we end up doing any kind of a staggered schedule or shift schedule, we need to consider our siblings, our kids, and their brothers and sisters and so forth.
I've written that down on my list.
Yeah, that's a challenge. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. But I think it's really important, at least in the same building, in particular. If two kids in an elementary together, I think that's.
Yes.
I can't imagine doing it a different way. Now that she's brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Good thing. Good question and good point. Another one good to know is that Kathy had said that some of the seniors may not have understood that they could have had, I think, multiple answers to some of the questions. They could provide more than one answer. So we'll look at the survey and see what kind of results we get back. And if there is some lacking on additional data, we'll see how that impacts the survey. But thank you for pointing that out. They may not have realized. I think I know what she's talking about. They may not have realized that they could check more than one, in particularly when it came to the stages and dealing with the different stages.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. I know, Rich, we might take for granted because we're sitting in weekly on Dr. McCormick's live chat that the governor has, a lot of things in here about the schedule. Yeah. And while the governor put out the Back on Track plan last week for basically everyone except schools, he anticipates being able to give us more clear direction by the mid-May.
Yes.
And while we're madly paddling to try to figure out different options, we also know that mid-May is going to be really important for us to actually deciding on what we're going to do. And so I don't know if parents would have had that kind of
that's true
knowledge, but I would say after that governor announcement, we're going to be able to put something more concrete and share. Right now, we would be sharing 30 ideas.
Yeah, which are too much, but
it's overwhelming to us, and I don't think anybody else wants to jump in that mess.
Yeah, and that is a good question or comment from Brittany Benson, who said, wouldn't it be better to start earlier with the whole flu season type of issue where, it might, the resurgence, and we actually have a calendar designed for that as well. And we're just waiting for some clarification again from the governor as to what is the best approach. So we actually have a flu and cold season calendar where in the event that we would see a resurgence, what is our plan? So and like you said, Brittany, anticipating additional time away from the buildings in, say, maybe October, November timeframe, and maybe carrying all the way through until January. So good comment, and appreciate that one as well. Let's see. Next, looking to see if we have any hands raised. No. We're down to just a couple of minutes left. Want to respect everyone's time. Let's see here.
I know I've been monitoring questions, and one of those is we're thinking about what that plan looks like, whether kids are all in the building or whether it's a odd even day. Someone had asked about passing periods, and I just want to let people know I'm writing those kind of questions down, because those will be very logistical questions, no matter how many kids would be in the building, that we would want to take into consideration. They might have some staggered passing periods next year by grade level or team or different things in our middle school or in high school.
Yeah,
there was another question.
That's a great idea.
There was another question about freshman orientation. Obviously, all of those back to school events are so important. And so we're going to do everything we can, if they say you can only do them in groups of 50 or whatever, to follow those rules, to be safe, but then also to give those kids the opportunities. I know those are so important for kids to be able to see where their classes are going to be, and for parents to meet the teachers. All of those things are really important. So we're going to do everything we can. We're not just going to skip those things because they're going to have to be modified on the calendar. So please know that that's something that we're definitely working on.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's a good question, Nora, and this comes from Amy Gaffney. And that is about paraprofessionals working with students online. And I know we've had some talk about that early on. The biggest piece was training and getting them trained to work with students online. And that is something we are considering for the future. How can we take advantage of our classroom assistants and working with students in small groups? And that can be done via Zoom, if you will, and other ways for our staff. So that's a great one, Amy, and we are looking at that, and that's part of our beefing up, if you will, our online presence for next year and how we can do that. I do see I think you answered the middle school question. I will say the issue of dealing with just the size of classes is a big challenge for us to find a way to shift it down to whatever that number might be from the whatever stage we're in. Oh, excuse me. The robot that cleans the carpet in this house has told me it's 9 o'clock. So, okay. Any last? There's a big question here from Amanda, and I haven't really had a chance to. Anyone have a chance to kind of read through that one and see if we did or did not? I see some stuff.
I did. I was just actually reading that one now, and she's concerned about all aspects of her child, and I know since all this has happened as administrators and with our teachers, we've talked a lot about the holistic wellness of our children. And while academics are certainly what we do and why we exist, we know that they don't happen in a vacuum, and the social emotional well-being and the state of our children and our adults is a piece of that educational process. And so we're looking at what do we need to do differently for kids, even though we work really hard to take care of our kids. What do we need to do differently in the fall? No matter when we come back, or if we can't come back right away, we have to continue virtually for a while, what does that look like? And so our new director of social emotional wellness and counseling is working with the counselors, and teaching and learning is working with her on how to support that. I know this is at the top of our mind, how to take care of kids so that they can learn. And so, we want kids to be safe. I don't want kids to come back if it's not safe yet. we'll have to figure that out. But I do want her to know that that's a huge part of the plan. And I would say advocating beyond us, you know, you talk to legislators or you talk to, you know, the DOE. I know Dr. McCormick is flooded with parents, and she takes that input from our families across the state very seriously.
And in regards to like the physical, emotional, mental health piece, we can, it's Amanda, we can have you reach out also to Heather Fosnot, who is our director of school counseling and mental health. And Stacy, what is her email? It's because I won't spell her name.
Fosnot H.
Yeah, Fosnot H, and Fosnot is spelled
FOSNAUGH.
Yes, at Center Grove.
centergrove.k12.in.us.
Yes. Just trying to get through. We have about 4 more questions. We'll make sure we've addressed them in some way or another. We have the question about schedules shifting. Will we lengthen classes or be shortened? And those are definitely things we're talking about, Yolanda. We are looking at and how we can be more innovative and stronger, if you will, as a school district. And some of that may be by adjusting what we do in our current scheduling, our traditional scheduling, what we cover academically, and how we cover it. So we are looking at how that might impact in changing the scheduling. And any kind of change that we make, as soon as we can make that decision, we will definitely get that. We always need to talk with our teachers first about all of that. So we plan that with our teachers. And once we've done that, then we work with the school board to make sure that they approve of any kind of change that we're looking to make. And then, of course, we usually bring that to a boardroom discussion, and then you'll be able to hear that in a board meeting as a recommendation of what kind of change we would make, especially something global like a calendar shift or a change in instructional format that will impact so many. Okay, and then the next question, according to the backtrack plan, did we answer this when I'm scanning it really quickly? Rick's question, does everybody see that? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah. So alternative graduation sites, like I said, we're looking at the football field. That is our main objective, to do that out on the football field. And so having some rain dates and all of that will be imperative. So the next question was making things more standard per grade level, middle school and high school. This would reduce the potential spread. And if I understand that question or comment, so in other words, not having changes in the middle schools and the high schools where kids are moving around in the hallways and all of that. So that is a model that has been suggested, and we're reviewing that. And that basically what would happen is kids would come into the school, they would stay in the classroom, and then instructors would rotate or something like that. And so there's some, as we're looking at that, and it's a really good idea, but there are some definite issues with logistics, with different student schedules and the different types of classes that they take. And so it'll just depend on what we need to do to get those things done. So I think we got through all the questions. Thank you all very much. Our next coffee chat will be May 21st. I believe we're going to shoot to have Dr. Henderson here with us that day. We're going to talk. We hope to have a lot more answers and direction on graduation. And so Dr. Henderson will be joining us to just talk through that, and of course to answer any more questions. I really appreciate all of you taking your time today to participate. It's great to have you here. I really appreciate all of your care for your students, your children, and our school district. And let's see, we have, like I said, May 21st, that's a Thursday, so 2 weeks from today.